Then King Solomon conscripted a labor force of 30,000 men from all Israel. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 every month, so that each man would be 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of this labor force. Solomon also had 70,000 common laborers, 80,000 quarry workers in the hill country, and 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. Basically, supervisory roles for the, let's see here, 180, for the 180,000 other workers. What's up, cool people? My name is Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. All right. So we're looking at 1 Kings chapter 5. So Solomon has been established as king. God asks him what he wants. And then Solomon asks basically for wisdom to better be able to rule, Israel. And God likes that. He says, okay, I'm not only going to give you that, but you're also going to get, fame and fortune and all sorts of other good things, too. So then we kind of read a little bit about that fame and fortune and an example or two of the wisdom that he had. And that's kind of where we're at with things as we get into 1 Kings chapter 5. So here we go. King Hiram of Tyre had always been a loyal friend of David. When Hiram learned that David's son Solomon was the new king of Israel, he sent ambassadors to congratulate him. Then Solomon sent this message back to Hiram. You know that my father David was not able to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord his God because of the many wars waged against him by surrounding nations. He could not build until the Lord gave him victory over all his enemies. But now the Lord my God has given me peace on every side. I have no enemies, and all is well. So I am planning to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord my God, just as he had instructed my father David. For the Lord told him, your son, whom I will place on your throne, will build the temple to honor my name. Therefore, please command that cedars from Lebanon be cut for me. Let my men work alongside yours, and I will pay your men whatever wages you ask. As you know, there is no one among us who can cut timber like you Sidonians. Okay, so, it's noted here that David had wanted to build a temple for God, but because of all the different wars and conflicts that he had, he wasn't able to do so, including, wars with Philistines and other people groups around them, revolts from within against the likes of Absalom and one or two other people. And because of all that, and because God knew that that was going to be happening throughout David's reign, God said, I appreciate your desire to do this, but you're not the one to do it. He might not have had time to really, oversee it very well. And on top of that, just, I think it was mentioned back then that just because of how much blood was on David's hands because of all the wars, that made God also not really want him to oversee that and to have that attached to his name. But things are peaceful now with Solomon as king, because David put in all that work of defeating the enemies all around. Plus, Solomon has a great deal of respect from other kingdoms around him for his wisdom, among other things. mostly his wisdom. So now Solomon has the right situation to be able to build this temple. Note here right off the bat, it just mentions these verses are numbered differently in the Hebrew text because the Hebrew included some stuff at the end of chapter 4 in this chapter. Okay, wanted to make sure there weren't any other notes. So, because of this, Solomon realizes that he's going to need a lot of wood and other things like that. He talks with this king of Tyre, who was friends with his father David, and essentially requests to be able to cut down a bunch of the trees that were in Tyre to use for the temple. It doesn't really say how much, at least not yet, but that's what Solomon is asking. And I guess he's also asking for some of the workers from there. Tyre and Sidon were, I think, very close to each other just geographically, but also, like, kind of lumped together quite often in terms of, like, whoever was ruling over them, and just considering that all kind of like one kingdom in a way. But so he asks for some wood and some workers. Then we get to verse 7. When Hiram received Solomon's message, he was very pleased and said, "Praise the Lord today for giving David a wise son to be king of the great nation of Israel." Then he sent this reply to Solomon. "I have received your message, and I will supply all the cedar and cypress timber you need. My servants will bring the logs from the Lebanon mountains to the Mediterranean Sea, and make them into rafts, and float them along the coast to whatever place you choose. Then we will break the rafts apart so you can carry the logs away. You can pay me by supplying me with food for my household." Okay. So, Hiram basically says, yeah, sure. Sounds good. Here's how we're going to do it. Because Tyre, it was either within the Mediterranean Sea. I'm blanking on where exactly Tyre is. Might have been within the Mediterranean Sea or on another, not exactly very close sea port. Whatever the need was, he comes back and says, okay, sure, sounds good. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to build ships out of this wood to get it all to you. And then once the ships get to you, we'll just break down all the wood. It's probably also a lot easier. Well, maybe not a lot easier. It could very well have been easier to transport the wood that way than to try and transport it all on land, carrying these giant pieces of wood on top of other things that could possibly get, like, broken apart and need repair along the way, or other things like that. And the main thing that he asks in exchange for this favor is to just make sure that... Now it says... King Hiram says, you can pay me by supplying me with food for my household. That's all he asks. Now, are we talking specifically just for him? And, like, his family and the people that would live in his palace or whatever? Or are we talking, like, also the workers and other people connected with him. It would seem to imply just Hiram and his immediate family or whoever. But, let me check this note here. Hebrew just says the sea instead of the Mediterranean Sea. It was the main sea around there. So that Mediterranean is kind of implied when it says the sea. Also, that's geographically... I mean, Tyre is definitely around the Mediterranean Sea somewhere, if not within it. So, yeah. Or maybe I should say it was. I don't know. Anyway. Alright. So then we get to verse 10. So Hiram supplied as much cedar and cypress timber as Solomon desired. In return, Solomon sent him an annual payment of 100,000 bushels of wheat for his household and 110,000 gallons of pure olive oil. So the Lord gave wisdom to Solomon, just as he had promised, and Hiram and Solomon made a formal alliance of peace. Alright, so the notes here go back to the Hebrew, which says 20,000 cores of wheat, equivalent to roughly 4,400 kiloliters. That's not a measurement you hear very often. But, I mean, liters... most people have an idea of what a liter is, or at least 2 liters. And each kiloliter would be 1,000 liters. Which is a lot, but per year. So, fair enough, probably. 110,000 gallons of olive oil as well. That's as in the Greek version, which reads 20,000 baths, or 420 kiloliters. Hebrew reads 20 cores, which is about 1,000 gallons, or 4.4 kiloliters. Okay. That's a pretty notable difference, but... like, I don't know for sure how much olive oil they would have used. I know most of the time when your average person uses olive oil, they're not using like massive quantities of it at once. So, I mean, anyway, that was the stuff that Solomon sent to Hiram as payment. And they're officially working together on this. So then we get to verse 13. Then King Solomon conscripted a labor force of 30,000 men from all Israel. He sent them to Lebanon in shifts, 10,000 every month, so that each man would be 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of this labor force. Solomon also had 70,000 common laborers, 80,000 quarry workers in the hill country, and 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. At the king's command, they quarried large blocks of high-quality stone and shaped them to make the foundation of the temple. Men from the city of Gebal helped Solomon's and Hiram's builders prepare the timber and stone for the temple. No clue if I pronounced that place name at all how it's supposed to, but whatever. So, we've got 30,000 men going in shifts of a month at a time just to cut down the wood and maybe bring it back to Israel. 70,000, it just says common laborers. Not quite sure what all responsibilities that implies. They might have been the flex crew that did different things at different times depending on what was needed. 80,000 quarry workers, those would have been the ones like breaking apart and hauling the stone. And then 3,600 foremen to supervise the work. Note there says, that says in some Greek manuscripts, Hebrew reads 3,300. It's still. Basically, you know, supervisory roles for the, let's see here, 180, for the 180,000 other workers. Not including any of the ones from Tyre that were helping in this effort. Or from this city, because it says they helped prepare the timber and stone. So, quite a few people involved. We're talking like, you know, I don't know if that's quite corporate level operations, but that's still a pretty large workforce. But yeah, that's how the workers were arranged and the plans came about for building the temple. And that's where we leave things off for 1 Kings chapter 5. Alright, so there you get the general idea of like how the temple was built, how the resources were gathered, and all that kind of stuff. Next chapter is going to get into more detail about the temple itself, its layout, what it looked like, how the different materials were used, and different things like that. So, if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with my latest videos as I release them. Make sure you like this video as well if you enjoyed it. Share it with others if you want them to see. Look down in the description for information on social media pages and links to find and follow those, along with my Discord server where we can chat about stuff between videos, and my supporter page where you can sign up for a membership and get some benefits in return for, you know, financial support of what I do here. Or you can just give once. That's up to you. Anyway, down below the description, leave your thoughts in the comment section with whatever questions, ideas, thoughts, any of that you have for me. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.